Ladies and gentlemen, life is suffering. This is a fundamental truth. And yet, within that suffering, within the solitude that each of us must inevitably face, there is a great and powerful opportunity. And you see, we are social creatures, deeply wired for connection. And when we find ourselves alone, an instinctive fear creeps in, the fear of loneliness. But solitude and loneliness are not the same thing. To be alone and not feel lonely, that is the mark of someone who has cultivated their inner world, who has built themselves into something solid, something competent, something meaningful. The person who can stand alone without crumbling is not isolated. They are fortified. They have made peace with their own company, developed a purpose, and found strength in their individuality. And so today I want to talk about the difference between solitude and loneliness, about how you can transform moments of isolation into a crucible for self-discovery and personal growth. Because the ability to be alone, not as a victim of circumstance, but as a master of your own existence, is one of the greatest strengths you can possess. Let's explore why solitude and loneliness are often mistaken for one another, but they are fundamentally different experiences, shaped by perception, mindset, and personal growth. Many people fear being alone, believing that solitude inevitably leads to isolation and emotional emptiness. This fear is largely driven by a misunderstanding of what it means to be alone, and a societal conditioning that equates solitude with social rejection or failure. However, solitude, when embraced properly, can be one of the most enriching and transformative experiences a person can have. Loneliness arises when a person feels disconnected from others, even in the presence of company. It is not simply about being physically alone, but about feeling unseen, unheard, or lacking meaningful engagement with the world. It is an emotional state that can persist regardless of how many social interactions a person has. A crowded room can feel empty when the connections are superficial or unfulfilling. This kind of loneliness stems from a deeper yearning for connection, purpose, and meaning, and it often emerges when a person has not yet learned to be comfortable with themselves. On the other hand, solitude is a state of being alone without suffering from the absence of others. It is a deliberate act of stepping away from external distractions to engage more deeply with oneself. Those who have mastered solitude do not seek validation from constant social interactions because they have developed an internal sense of self-worth. They are not dependent on the presence of others to feel whole. Instead, they have cultivated a relationship with themselves that allows them to find fulfillment in their own company. The modern world is structured in a way that makes solitude seem unnatural or undesirable. The rise of social media, constant connectivity, and an always-on culture have conditioned people to believe that they must always be engaged with others, that silence must be filled, and that being alone is synonymous with being unwanted. This conditioning creates a cycle of dependence where people fear the quiet moments because they are unfamiliar with the idea of sitting with their own thoughts. They become restless, seeking external stimuli to avoid confronting themselves. However, solitude is not about avoidance. It is about presence. It is about learning to listen to the thoughts, ideas, and emotions that surface when there is no external noise to drown them out. Many of history's greatest thinkers, creators, and visionaries have understood the power of solitude. The power of solitude. It is in these quiet moments that self-reflection deepens, creativity flourishes, and personal growth accelerates. The ability to sit with oneself without distraction or the need for external affirmation is a skill that must be cultivated. It requires developing a mindset that views solitude not as a punishment, but as an opportunity. It is in solitude that a person can develop a clearer sense of identity, refine their thoughts, and gain the kind of self-awareness that strengthens resilience. One of the key factors that differentiates solitude from loneliness is intention. When solitude is chosen, it becomes a space for self-development. It allows for a sense of control over one's time, thoughts and emotions. Loneliness, in contrast, often feels imposed, something one suffers rather than embraces. This distinction is crucial because it highlights the role of perception in shaping one's experience of being alone. If a person sees solitude as a moment of self-improvement rather than isolation, the emotional response shifts from distress to empowerment. Developing comfort with solitude requires practice. It begins with small steps, spending time alone without the crutch of technology, engaging in personal reflection, or pursuing solitary activities that bring fulfillment. Reading, writing, meditating, or simply sitting in stillness can all serve as powerful tools for cultivating a sense of peace in one's own presence. The goal is to shift from seeking distraction to embracing the opportunity to engage more deeply with oneself. Another important aspect of embracing solitude is recognizing that external validation is not a requirement for self-worth. Many people struggle with being alone because they have tied their value to how others perceive them. They seek constant reassurance, approval, or attention to feel significant. However, when a person learns to define their worth internally, the need for external affirmation diminishes. They no longer feel empty when alone because they have built a foundation of self-respect and purpose. Solitude is not about withdrawing from the world permanently. It is about developing the ability to be alone without discomfort, to engage with oneself in a way that fosters growth rather than loneliness. It is a shift in perspective that transforms isolation into independence, emptiness into fulfillment, and fear into strength. The ability to be alone without feeling lonely is one of the most powerful skills a person can develop. Purpose is the anchor that keeps a person steady in solitude. Without it, time alone can feel aimless and unsettling, leading to a sense of loneliness rather than fulfillment. Purpose provides direction, structure, and a reason to engage deeply with one's own thoughts and actions. When a person has a meaningful goal, solitude is no longer something to be feared. Instead, it becomes a valuable opportunity for growth and progress. A strong sense of purpose transforms isolation into productivity, turning moments of solitude into periods of self-improvement rather than emptiness. A lack of purpose often leads to feelings of restlessness. Without a clear direction, the mind drifts toward negative thoughts, self-doubt, and an increased need for external distractions. This is why many people struggle with being alone. They have not yet identified a compelling reason to be engaged with their own lives outside of social interactions. When every moment of solitude is seen as empty time to be filled, the natural response is to seek out distractions, whether through entertainment, social media, or unnecessary social engagements. These distractions may provide temporary relief from loneliness, but they do not offer lasting fulfillment. In contrast, when solitude is paired with purpose, it becomes a time of creativity, learning, and self-discovery. People who have a strong sense of purpose do not feel the need to constantly seek external validation. They are driven by an internal motivation that keeps them focused even in the absence of social interactions. Their sense of fulfillment comes not from how others perceive them, but from the progress they make toward their goals. This creates a shift in mindset where solitude is no longer viewed as isolation, but as a necessary component of achieving something meaningful. Whether that purpose is personal growth, creative expression, or intellectual development, having a clear objective makes solitude a time of value rather than a state to be avoided. Finding purpose requires deep self-reflection. Many people go through life without ever truly understanding what drives them. They follow routines dictated by external expectations rather than their own intrinsic motivations. This lack of clarity makes solitude difficult because without a strong internal compass, alone time feels like a void rather than an opportunity. Developing purpose involves asking difficult questions. What am I passionate about? What skills do I want to develop? What kind of impact do I want to have? Answering these questions provides a foundation for using solitude effectively, turning it into a tool for personal advancement rather than a source of discomfort. Purpose does not have to be something grand or world-changing. It simply needs to be meaningful on a personal level. Some people find purpose in artistic expression, others in intellectual pursuits, physical fitness, or even in mastering a particular skill. The specific goal is less important than the sense of direction it provides. When a person is engaged in something meaningful, time alone is no longer experienced as loneliness because the mind is occupied with something that matters. It shifts the focus away from what is missing and toward what can be built, learned, or created. One of the most effective ways to cultivate purpose is through discipline and routine. When a person establishes daily habits that align with their goals, solitude becomes a structured and productive experience rather than a chaotic or uncomfortable one. Setting aside dedicated time for skill building, reading, writing, or physical activity ensures that solitude serves a function. Over time, this routine reinforces a sense of progress and accomplishment, making alone time something to look forward to rather than something to escape from. Another crucial aspect of purpose is resilience. A strong sense of purpose provides the mental strength to withstand difficulties, setbacks, and moments of self-doubt. It creates a foundation of meaning that remains stable even when external circumstances change. People who lack purpose often feel lost when faced with adversity because they do not have an internal structure to rely on. In contrast, those with a clear goal remain focused even in the face of challenges because their direction is not dependent on immediate comfort or external approval. Solitude, when paired with purpose, also fosters creativity and innovation. Many of history's greatest minds have credited their breakthroughs to time spent in deep focus, away from distractions. Artists, writers, scientists, and entrepreneurs have all benefited from periods of solitude where their purpose was given full attention. When the mind is not constantly occupied with social interactions or external noise, it has the freedom to explore new ideas, solve complex problems, and generate insights that would not be possible in a crowded or distracted environment. Developing purpose also enhances self-respect and confidence. When a person knows they are actively working towards something meaningful, they no longer feel the need to prove themselves through social validation. Their sense of worth is derived from their own progress rather than from the opinions of others. This internal confidence makes solitude a place of strength rather than a source of insecurity. It transforms time alone from a state of longing into a period of meaningful self-engagement. The way a person speaks to themselves determines the quality of their solitude. Thoughts shape emotions, and emotions shape experience. When someone is alone, their inner dialogue becomes the dominant voice in their life. Now, if that voice is harsh, critical, or filled with self-doubt, solitude will feel unbearable. If it is constructive, encouraging, and reflective, being alone will feel like an opportunity for growth rather than a punishment. The way a person interacts with their own thoughts defines whether solitude is a place of suffering or a place of strength. Many people struggle with being alone because their inner dialogue is filled with negativity. When there is no external distraction to drown out their thoughts, they become trapped in a cycle of self-criticism, regret, or anxiety. They replay past mistakes, question their worth, and anticipate worst-case scenarios. This internal conversation creates a feeling of loneliness, not because they lack external company, but because their own mind becomes a hostile environment. When solitude is experienced through the lens of self-judgment, it becomes a painful experience, something to be avoided rather than embraced. On the other hand, those who have mastered their inner dialogue experience solitude differently. They have learned to speak to themselves with the same kindness, patience, and wisdom that they would offer a close friend. They acknowledge their flaws without allowing them to define their self-worth. They engage in introspection without slipping into self-punishment. Their thoughts are not dominated by fear or regret, but by curiosity, self-improvement, and self-acceptance. This creates an entirely different experience of being alone, one that is peaceful, fulfilling, and even productive. The first step in mastering inner dialogue is awareness. Most people are not conscious of how they speak to themselves. Their thoughts operate in the background, influencing emotions and behaviors without being questioned. And negative self-talk becomes a habit, shaping their perception of themselves and their experiences. Recognizing these thought patterns is essential. Paying attention to the words and tone used in self-reflection reveals whether one's inner voice is a source of strength or a source of suffering. So, identifying harmful thought patterns allows a person to begin reshaping them into something more constructive. Reframing negative thoughts is a powerful tool for changing inner dialogue. Instead of allowing self-criticism to dominate, one can challenge negative beliefs and replace them with more balanced perspectives. A mistake does not mean failure. It means an opportunity to learn. A period of solitude does not mean abandonment. It means a chance for self-discovery. So, challenge is not a sign of inadequacy. It is a test of resilience. By consciously altering the way thoughts are framed, solitude transforms from a time of self-doubt into a time of self-development. Another important aspect of mastering inner dialogue is learning to separate thoughts from identity. Many people assume that every thought they have is a reflection of who they are. If they think something negative, they believe it must be true. If they feel lonely, they assume they are unworthy of connection. However, thoughts are not facts. They are mental patterns influenced by emotions, experiences, and conditioning. Recognizing that negative thoughts do not define one's identity allows for greater emotional freedom. It creates space between experience and interpretation, making it easier to navigate solitude without falling into self-defeating beliefs. Practicing self-compassion is another essential element of improving inner dialogue. Many people are far more forgiving and understanding toward others than they are toward themselves. They offer encouragement to friends, but criticize themselves harshly. They show patience to loved ones, but demand perfection from themselves. Wow. This imbalance creates an inner world that is harsh and unforgiving, making solitude feel like an ongoing confrontation rather than a place of refuge. Developing self-compassion means treating oneself with the same level of kindness and patience that would be extended to others. It means recognizing struggles without judgment and responding to difficulties with understanding rather than condemnation. Mindfulness is a powerful tool for improving inner dialogue. When the mind is constantly focused on the past or anxious about the future, inner dialogue tends to become overwhelming. Regrets, fears, and uncertainties dominate thoughts, creating a mental environment that fuels loneliness. Mindfulness brings attention back to the present moment, allowing a person to engage with their thoughts without being consumed by them. Simple practices such as deep breathing, meditation, or conscious awareness of surroundings can help ground the mind, making solitude feel more manageable and even enjoyable. Journaling is another effective way to reshape inner dialogue. Writing down thoughts and emotions creates clarity, allowing a person to observe their mental patterns objectively. It provides an opportunity to challenge negative beliefs, reflect on personal growth, and reinforce positive self-perception. Over time, this practice rewires thought processes, replacing destructive inner dialogue with a more balanced and empowering narrative. Mastering inner dialogue also involves taking control of the stories one tells about themselves. People construct narratives about their lives based on their experiences, but these narratives are often distorted by emotions and biases. Someone who sees themselves as a failure will interpret every setback as proof of their inadequacy. Someone who believes they are resilient will view challenges as opportunities to grow. Changing the story one tells about oneself changes the experience of solitude, turning it into a time of self-discovery rather than self-doubt. Competence is one of the most powerful antidotes to loneliness because it builds confidence, self-reliance, and a sense of achievement. When a person develops skills and knowledge, they create an internal source of fulfillment that is not dependent on external validation. The more competent a person becomes, the less they feel the need to seek constant reassurance from others. They begin to trust themselves, their abilities, and their capacity to handle challenges independently. This shift in mindset transforms solitude from something to be feared into a valuable time for self-improvement. Many people struggle with being alone because they feel unanchored, uncertain of their abilities, lacking in direction. Without meaningful skills or knowledge to engage with, solitude can feel empty, leading to restlessness and the urge to seek distractions. People who have not developed competence often look to others for entertainment, affirmation, or solutions to their problems. This dependence creates a cycle where loneliness becomes more pronounced because fulfillment is sought externally rather than internally. In contrast, those who have cultivated competence in various areas of life experience solitude as an opportunity to refine their skills, engage in meaningful activities, and deepen their understanding of the world. Competence is not something a person is born with. It is developed through deliberate effort, practice, and perseverance. Every skill, whether intellectual, physical, or creative, is acquired through consistent engagement. The process of developing competence requires patience and discipline, but the rewards are immense. When a person dedicates time to mastering a skill, they experience a sense of progress and personal growth that makes solitude feel purposeful rather than isolating. They no longer need external stimulation to feel engaged because they have an internal source of motivation that keeps them focused and fulfilled. One of the key benefits of competence is the confidence it instills. When a person knows they are skilled at something, they carry themselves differently, They trust their ability to handle challenges, solve problems, and navigate difficulties on their own. This self-assurance reduces the fear of being alone because solitude is no longer associated with helplessness or uncertainty. Instead, it becomes a space where competence can be further developed and applied. People who are confident in their abilities do not feel the need to constantly seek approval from others because they derive their sense of worth from their own progress and achievements. Competence also enhances independence. The more skilled a person becomes, the less reliant they are on others for their happiness, success, or sense of purpose. This does not mean isolating oneself from the world, but rather cultivating the ability to function effectively even in solitude. Independence is not about rejecting connection, but about ensuring that connection is a choice rather than a necessity. When a person is competent, they engage with others from a place of strength rather than desperation. Well, they are not seeking relationships to fill a void, but to add value to their already fulfilling life. The process of building competence requires a shift in perspective. Many people avoid learning new skills because they fear failure or discomfort. They assume that competence is reserved for those with natural talent or special opportunities. However, competence is not about innate ability. It is about persistence. Every expert was once a beginner, struggling with the same uncertainties and frustrations. The difference between those who develop competence and those who do not is the willingness to persist through discomfort. This mindset shift is crucial because it removes the fear of failure, making learning an exciting journey rather than an intimidating challenge. One of the best ways to develop competence is through deliberate practice. Passive engagement, such as simply reading about a skill or watching others perform it, does not lead to mastery. Active participation, repetition, problem solving, and refining techniques is essential. Whether learning a language, playing an instrument, writing, programming, or developing physical fitness, competence grows through direct experience and continuous improvement. The process itself becomes fulfilling, creating a deep sense of engagement that makes solitude enjoyable rather than distressing. Competence also fosters creativity. When a person has developed skill in a particular area, they are no longer limited to following instructions or imitating others. They gain the ability to innovate, experiment, and express themselves in unique ways. This level of mastery leads to deep satisfaction because it allows for self-expression and originality. Creativity thrives in solitude because it requires deep focus, uninterrupted thought, and the freedom to explore new ideas. When a person has developed competence, they can use their time alone to engage in creative pursuits that bring meaning and fulfillment. In addition to personal satisfaction, competence also enhances problem-solving abilities. Skilled individuals approach challenges with a sense of capability rather than fear. They trust themselves to find solutions, adapt to difficulties, and learn from setbacks. This problem-solving mindset reduces the anxiety often associated with being alone because solitude is no longer seen as a vulnerable state, but as a time for thoughtful analysis and independent action. The ability to solve problems builds resilience, making a person more adaptable and less reliant on external circumstances for their sense of stability. Competence is also deeply connected to self-discipline. Developing skill requires consistent effort, delayed gratification, and a willingness to push through obstacles. These qualities extend beyond skill building and become a part of a person's overall mindset. A disciplined person is not easily thrown off course by loneliness or uncertainty because they have trained themselves to stay focused and engaged regardless of external conditions. This inner stability makes solitude a productive and valuable experience rather than emotional struggle. The ability to enjoy solitude is closely tied to the quality of one's relationship with oneself. Many people struggle with being alone not because they lack social connections, but because they are uncomfortable with their own thoughts, emotions, and sense of self. When a person does not have a strong and positive relationship with themselves, solitude can feel like an inescapable confrontation with insecurities, regrets, and self-doubt. On the other hand, those who cultivate self-acceptance, self-respect, and self-compassion experience solitude as a time of peace, reflection, and even joy. A healthy relationship with oneself begins with self-awareness. Many people go through life without fully understanding their own desires, fears, and motivations. They are influenced by external expectations, constantly adjusting themselves to fit societal norms, family pressures, or peer influences. As a result, they lose touch with their authentic selves. When they are alone, they feel unsettled because they do not know how to engage with themselves beyond distractions. Developing self-awareness means taking the time to reflect on personal values, strengths, weaknesses, and aspirations. It involves asking deep questions and being honest about the answers. This process creates a stronger sense of identity, making solitude feel less like a void and more like an opportunity for self-discovery. Another crucial element of a strong relationship with oneself is self-acceptance. Many people hold on to unrealistic expectations of perfection, constantly criticizing themselves for their perceived flaws and mistakes. This inner criticism makes solitude uncomfortable because it amplifies feelings of inadequacy. Learning to accept oneself, flaws included, is essential for inner peace. Self-acceptance does not mean complacency. It means acknowledging imperfections without allowing them to define one's worth. It means recognizing that growth is a journey and that setbacks are a natural part of life. So, when a person treats themselves with the same understanding they would offer a friend, solitude becomes a space for healing and self-improvement rather than self-punishment. Self-respect is another key component of a positive relationship with oneself. People who lack self-respect often seek external validation to compensate for their internal doubts. They look to others to confirm their worth, which makes solitude difficult because without external feedback, They feel empty or uncertain. Building self-respect means setting personal standards and living in alignment with them. It means making choices based on principles rather than external approval. When a person respects themselves, they no longer feel the need to escape solitude because their sense of worth is not dependent on others. They know who they are, what they stand for, and what they are capable of achieving. Another important aspect of enjoying solitude is learning to be present with oneself. Many people avoid solitude because their minds are either trapped in the past, dwelling on regrets, or anxiously anticipating the future. They struggle to simply be with themselves in the present moment. Practicing mindfulness helps shift this tendency. Mindfulness is the ability to observe thoughts and emotions without being controlled by them. It involves focusing on the present, whether through meditation, deep breathing, or simply paying attention to surroundings. When a person cultivates mindfulness, solitude becomes a calming experience rather than an overwhelming one. They learn to appreciate the quiet, to listen to their thoughts without judgment, and to engage fully with the present. Engaging in meaningful activities during solitude also strengthens the relationship with oneself. Many people view solitude as a passive state, a period of waiting until social interactions resume. However, solitude can be active and enriching. Reading, writing, creating art, learning new skills, or simply taking a walk in nature are ways to engage with oneself in a fulfilling manner. When a person fills their solitude with meaningful activities, they stop fearing it. They begin to see it as a valuable time for growth, creativity, and self-improvement. These activities provide a sense of purpose, making solitude enjoyable rather than lonely. Developing a strong inner dialogue is also crucial for enjoying solitude. People who constantly criticize themselves will find solitude unbearable because there is no escape from their own negative thoughts. Those who cultivate a supportive inner voice, however, experience solitude as a time of encouragement and self-reflection. A healthy inner dialogue involves challenging negative thoughts, practicing self-compassion, and reinforcing positive beliefs about oneself. The way a person speaks to themselves shapes their experience of being alone. When their inner voice is kind and constructive, solitude becomes a place of strength rather than suffering. Self-care plays a significant role in building a positive relationship with oneself. Taking care of physical health, maintaining a balanced diet, exercising, and getting enough rest all contribute to overall well-being. When a person neglects their health, they are more likely to experience negative emotions during solitude. Physical well-being and mental well-being are deeply connected. When a person takes care of their body, they feel better mentally, which makes solitude a more enjoyable experience. Engaging in activities that bring joy, whether listening to music, practicing a hobby, or simply resting, reinforces a sense of self-worth and fulfillment. Another important factor is setting boundaries in relationships. People who struggle with solitude often overextend themselves in social interactions, seeking constant engagement to avoid being alone. This can lead to exhaustion, resentment, and dependence on others for emotional stability. Learning to set healthy boundaries allows a person to balance social interactions with necessary alone time. It helps them develop a sense of independence, ensuring that their emotional well-being is not entirely dependent on external connections. And when a person respects their own need for solitude, they create a healthier relationship with themselves and others. Gratitude also plays a significant role in shaping one's experience of solitude. When a person focuses on what they lack, solitude feels like deprivation. When they focus on what they have, solitude feels like an opportunity for appreciation. Practicing gratitude shifts perspective, allowing a person to recognize the value of quiet moments, personal growth, and self-reflection. Writing down things to be grateful for, reflecting on positive experiences, and acknowledging personal achievements all contribute to a sense of contentment. Gratitude transforms solitude into a time of appreciation rather than a time of longing. True fulfillment does not come from constant external stimulation or social validation. It comes from living a life aligned with one's values, passions, and sense of purpose. Many people fear solitude because they have not yet discovered a deep personal meaning that sustains them in the absence of external distractions. When a person is uncertain about their purpose or disconnected from their passions, being alone can feel empty and directionless. However, those who have identified and embraced a meaningful path experience solitude differently. Instead of feeling lonely, they feel engaged, motivated, and at peace with their own journey. Purpose is not something that is given, it is something that is created. Many people wait for meaning to reveal itself, hoping that a profound realization will suddenly make everything clear. But purpose is cultivated through action, exploration, and deep reflection. It is discovered by engaging with the world, trying new things, and paying attention to what brings joy, fulfillment, and a sense of contribution. When a person actively seeks meaning, they begin to construct a life that feels intrinsically rewarding. They develop a sense of direction that makes solitude feel purposeful rather than empty. Passion plays a crucial role in shaping a meaningful life. Passion is what keeps a person engaged, motivated, and willing to persevere through challenges. It is the driving force behind creativity, innovation, and fulfillment. When a person has identified something they love, whether it is an art form, a field of study, a craft, or a cause, they no longer need constant external entertainment. They can spend time alone pursuing their passion, refining their skills, and deepening their knowledge. Passion transforms solitude into an opportunity rather than an obstacle. It turns moments of quiet into moments of creation and self-expression. And many people struggle with solitude because they have not yet explored their interests deeply enough to discover their passions. They fill their time with distractions, social media, entertainment, and endless social interactions, without engaging in activities that provide deeper satisfaction. However, passion is found through exploration. It requires stepping outside of comfort zones, trying new things, and allowing curiosity to guide the way. When a person actively seeks out new experiences and challenges, they increase the likelihood of discovering something that resonates with them on a deep level. This pursuit of passion not only enriches life, but also makes solitude a time of excitement and self-discovery. A strong sense of purpose also provides resilience in the face of difficulties. Life is unpredictable, and there will always be moments of struggle, setbacks, and solitude. When a person lacks a clear purpose, these moments can feel overwhelming and disheartening. However, when a person has a deep sense of meaning guiding them, challenges become stepping stones rather than roadblocks. They can endure hardship with a sense of direction, knowing that every experience, good or bad, is part of a larger journey. This mindset reduces the fear of being alone because solitude is no longer associated with aimlessness, but with progress and self-development. Living a meaningful life also involves contributing to something greater than oneself. Many of the most fulfilling experiences come from acts of service, creation, or innovation that positively impact others. Whether through work, art, mentorship, or volunteering, contributing to the world provides a sense of connection and fulfillment that transcends superficial social interactions. When a person dedicates themselves to a cause or a craft that benefits others, solitude is no longer lonely. It becomes a space for reflection, preparation, and growth. Contribution transforms isolation into an opportunity to refine one's ability to make a meaningful impact. Self-discipline is another essential factor in creating a meaningful life. Passion and purpose alone are not enough. They must be followed by consistent effort and dedication. Many people abandon their aspirations because they expect instant results or because they struggle with the patience required to build something meaningful. However, true fulfillment comes from sustained commitment. It comes from showing up every day, putting in the work, and staying focused despite distractions. Self-discipline ensures that solitude is used productively, turning alone time into an opportunity for progress rather than a period of stagnation. A meaningful life also requires aligning daily actions with core values. Many people experience internal conflict because their behaviors do not reflect what they truly believe in. They may prioritize material success over personal integrity, seek approval rather than authenticity, or engage in activities that feel empty rather than fulfilling. This misalignment creates a sense of dissatisfaction that is amplified in solitude. However, when a person consistently acts in accordance with their values, they experience a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. Solitude then becomes a time to reflect on these values, reaffirm commitments, and ensure that life is moving in the right direction. Embracing solitude as part of a meaningful life also means learning to enjoy one's own company. Many people seek constant social interaction not because they truly need it, but because they are uncomfortable being alone with their thoughts. However, when a person has built a fulfilling life, they no longer need external validation to feel whole. They can sit in silence without feeling restless. They can engage in deep thought, enjoy their hobbies, and reflect on their progress without feeling lonely. This comfort with oneself is one of the greatest indicators of a truly meaningful life. Ultimately, meaning, passion, and purpose are what transforms solitude from a state of loneliness into a state of fulfillment. When a person has something that deeply engages them, they do not fear being alone, they welcome it. Solitude becomes a time to create, to grow, and to connect with something greater than oneself. It becomes an essential part of a well-lived life, not something to be avoided, but something to be embraced.